Hi folks, my name is Greg McLawsen. I'm the Affidavit of Support lawyer. I help green card holders enforce the USCIS Form I-864 in federal lawsuits, and I serve as a consulting expert when the Affidavit of Support is enforced in family court proceedings. One question I get from my clients a lot is, what documents am I going to have to disclose in the course of litigating my Affidavit of Support claim? Well, let's think about what this claim is fundamentally about. It's basically two things. First of all, you have to establish that you achieved residency status based on an affidavit of support that was filed in support of your application. So in short, if you have a green card that you achieved through family-sponsored immigration, usually this is a spouse, but it doesn't have to be. If that's true, you've proved that half of your case. Usually that first part is not really in contention. Where most of the evidentiary wrangling comes into play is the second half, and that comes down to income, because what you can recover as a plaintiff in an affidavit of support lawsuit is the difference between your actual income and 125% of the federal poverty guideline. In 2022, that's $1,416 per month. So in order to prove up the plaintiff's claim, what we have to demonstrate is that the person's income was below that amount. It's very often the case in these lawsuits that the plaintiff is unemployed. So what happens often is a couple has broken up, a married couple, the foreign national beneficiary of the affidavit of support is unemployed, and so they are seeking from the sponsor that full $1,416 per month. Put yourself in the shoes of a defense lawyer representing the defendant in one of these cases. If I come to you as plaintiff's counsel and say, my client is entitled to $1,400 per month because she's unemployed, as defense counsel, what are you going to want to explore from a factual basis? Well, of course, you are going to want evidence that my client is actually unemployed. So that's where a lot of actually the pre-litigation, so when we're in settlement talks before the federal court is ever involved, a lot of the back and forth between myself and defense counsel is assessing the evidence about my client's income. Well, one of the challenges here is that, especially in a case where the plaintiff is unemployed, how do you prove that? We would refer to this in law as proving the negative. The negative is my client is unemployed. Well, you don't get a paycheck that shows $0 per month, right? If my client is employed at McDonald's earning $8 an hour, I can show that with pay stubs. But what is often the case is that my client is unemployed, and I don't have a way of easily proving that. So my approach in these cases is I will go to defense counsel and I will say, talk to your client and you tell me what they will accept as proof that my client isn't working. You set the goalposts, you tell us what you want, and we will provide that to you. Usually this is going to be bank account statements. We always provide a copy of the Social Security statement. And then we say, tell us what else you want. Now, why would we do that? Because in the pre-litigation context, before a lawsuit has been filed, the defendant doesn't have any legal right to look at my client's financial records. So why would we do that? Well, the goal of asserting this claim is to get it resolved. And if we can resolve this before it heads into litigation, that's good for the defendant because they're going to have to pay everybody's legal fees, so they're better off if we avoid litigation. But it's also better for my client, because if we can get my client, the plaintiff, what they deserve before we go into federal court, that's great. We save months or even possibly years of going back and forth in federal litigation. In the federal litigation, the defendant has, under the discovery rules, the ability, more or less, to look at any financial information they can think of with respect to my client. The discovery rules are very broad. They permit you to access any admissible evidence or things that might lead to admissible evidence. So there's little question that if we get into litigation, the defendant can look at all of my client's financial records. So I say, let's just skip all of that legal back and forth. And in the pre-litigation, pre-lawsuit context, just tell me what you want. Because we know you're going to be able to get it later. And let's just skip all of that intermediary lawyering and go right to the part where you, the defendant, get what you want to assess what my client's actually been earning. I don't think there's any question that that's fair. And then when in fact the evidence shows that indeed my client is unemployed, then we can get serious about returning to the bargaining table and figuring out the value of the claim. So what this means as an I-864 plaintiff, certainly if you are a plaintiff who's working with me in one of these I-864 enforcement lawsuits, is you should be prepared to disclose all of your bank statements, investments if you have them, but any other financial information that the defendant is going to want, because they are ultimately going to be able to get to that. And in the interest of moving everybody towards early stage settlement, it's going to be my advice that you provide that early in the litigation process so we can all put our cards on the table, figure out what the plaintiff's actual income is, and then proceed to resolution. Because at the end of the day, claims under the Affidavit of Support are about arithmetic. They are simply, when it comes to valuing damages, the difference between 125% of the federal poverty guideline and the plaintiff's income. That's it. So the sooner we can get everybody on the same page about what the plaintiff's income is, the better. If the defendant wants to go off and litigate after that, that's their choice, and it's a stupid thing to do, but you can't stop them. But at least we've done everything we can as plaintiff's counsel on the plaintiff's team to be very fair and transparent about what our income situation is, because that determines damages in this case and nothing else. Hope that's helpful. If you have questions about the Affidavit of Support, jump into the comments and I'll answer them. If you would like an individualized case assessment about your rights under the Affidavit of Support, contact us on our website. We do free video consultations all across the United States. Hope that's helpful, folks.